And let the big dog hunt once again. Hello, everybody. And Merry Christmas in July, of course. Of course, I have this up all year round, but I figured it's apropos to mention it. I'm Joe Staszak. It's time for another episode of Kallas and Mark with yours truly and my man right over there, Steve Kallas. Steven, how you doing, my friend?
All good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too. Well, let's go back before we go forward because we obviously have been tracking the NBA Finals. One podcast, it was 2-0 Suns, and then it was 3-2 Bucks. They finished it off in Milwaukee last Tuesday night with a 50-point performance by the Greek Freak. Where would you put that performance in terms of in an elimination game type situation to win the whole thing, coming back from 2 down, back-to-back series?
It's just off the charts incredible. I mean, the guy, I don't think he likes the Greek Freak, but he's a freak. He's an athletic freak.
So good.
I don't really want to see these stats where like he and Shaq 60% and average over 30, because Shaq, his range was like 4 feet.
Right.
And Antetokounmpo will take threes and he'll take jumpers,
threes,
which he probably shouldn't. But his real range, he's shooting whatever it was, 90% from 5 feet.
Right.
And look, good for him. He's a dominant player. He's one of the most athletic players ever. He reminds me, frankly, of Olajuwon, but more athletic.
He is more athletic.
And Olajuwon, had the best footwork, had the best quickness.
Great touch.
And Antetokounmpo is that and more. But I will say this, ESPN brought out Michael Wilbon and Stephen A. Smith, I guess, as the historians, which, I wish they would have given Marv a chance to call a little at the end of that game. I know Marv's TNT, but he's retiring and he's Mike Green's hero. Or even PJ Carlissimo, who's on the radio side, because all they talked about was Magic when he was a rookie. Game 6, he had those 42 points in the clinching game.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes,
against the Sixers. Hurt. And they talked about Jordan getting 45 against Utah. Of course, Giannis getting 50. Nobody, of course, mentioned Bob Pettit scoring 50. Or these experts didn't mention Pettit getting 50 against the Russell Celtics right before they won 8 in a row and right after they had won their first. And all those are great, but I'm sorry, man, they're game 6. So if all of them lost, you can tell me it's one of the greatest performances ever, and it is, but it ain't game 7. So if all 4 of those guys lost, what happens? They come back in 2 days and they play for game 7. But if you do it in game 7, if you lose, you ain't coming back. You lose. So the 2 that jump out to me without question, and I can't believe these guys didn't mention them, is, of course, Walt Frazier in the Willis Reed game. Frazier upset to this day that it's called the Willis Reed game because he hobbles out. He got hurt in game 5. He didn't play game 6. Chamberlain had 45. This is against Wes Baylor and Chamberlain. Talk about big threes. And then in game 7, he limps out. He got a huge shot at Novocaine, could barely walk, played on one leg, if you watch the video, hit his first 2 jumpers, which was a tremendous lift, and did nothing the other, played like 20 minutes, did nothing the rest of the time.
Right.
Frazier goes 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds. They didn't keep steals as a stat then, but it's estimated like 5 steals, including one on West for a layup, I remember. And I always thought that was the greatest game 7 performance ever. And if it's the greatest game 7 performance ever, it's the greatest game 7. Don't tell me about game 6s. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you score 70. But the other one that's even better, which I learned about later, was in 1962, game 7, Celtics-Lakers. Bill Russell, in an overtime game, had 30 points and 40 rebounds. I didn't misspeak. 30 points, 40 rebounds to win by 3 in game 7. Wow. So to me, that's even greater than Frazier's, and I'm a Frazier guy, as you know.
Yeah.
So to not mention those 2 and have these guys pontificate about this stuff for 2, 3, 4 minutes about the history of the game, you're like, where's the historian? Isn't there some nerdy guy in the background who's going, what about Frazier? What about Russell? So those are the 2 greatest. Maybe you can argue about which is 1 and which is 2. Those are the 2 greatest. Maybe there's another one I'm not aware of. But again, as game 6s go, it's one of the greatest performances ever. But I want to even go back to game 5 because winning on the road was the key for them to win. And in game 5, and again, this is after game 4 when Middleton had 40 and Giannis had the greatest, I think, defensive play ever in the finals. I haven't seen them all. I don't go back to the Russell years. But for him to block that alley-oop to Ayton is the most incredible thing. I've never seen that happen ever. I've never seen a guy recover, get back, and block a dunk attempt.
Amazing.
Never mind in that play. So game 5, of course, I just want to read the stats because the reason they won game 5, and of course that holiday strip of Booker late and the lob to enter that won the game. That turned the game from maybe losing if they score a basket to them going up 3 on the alley-oop. Then he missed the foul shot Antetokounmpo, but was able to tap it back.
Right.
But I just want to read the stats from game 5 because to me, they won the game. They won the game in game 5 because their stars just played better on the road. And Middleton has not been good on the road, but he played really well. And again, the big score to me was the holiday play at the end. The reason they won, the 2 biggest pickups, we talked about it before the series, was the 2 biggest pickups in the NBA were Chris Paul and Jrue Holiday. It turned out Holiday made the biggest play, but they wouldn't have been there without Chris Paul. He made Booker a superstar. I understand the Kobe connection with Booker. And Chris Paul had an up and down, he had an up and down series, frankly, after playing great. So I just thought in game 5 on the road, it wasn't just Antetokounmpo, but other guys played as well. And to me, that's why they won game 5, and that's why they won the series. Johnny Kallas and I did a thing before. We both picked the Bucks in 6, but neither of us picked we thought they'd steal one of the first 2.
Yeah.
Which they didn't come close to stealing.
Not at all.
But to win 4 in a row, and I'll give you a negative Chris Paul stat. And I don't think this is Chris Paul's fault. Like I'll say to you, Doc Rivers, the only guy to lose 3-3-1 leads in the playoffs. And no other coach has lost 1. But Chris Paul is the only guy to lose 4 best-of-7 playoff series after his team was up 2-0. You can't blame one guy for that. I think you can blame a coach a little bit in the Doc Rivers situation. But Paul, 16 seasons. If he had won, you'd be happy he won. Antetokounmpo, 8 seasons. Had a real decision to make. Am I staying or leaving Milwaukee? Decided to stay. He preferred the small town. He knocked James Harden for going to the Nets, for example. He's not going to do that. And he got the job done. But we'll always say this is the all-injury playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And to me, the reason they won game 6, I just want to read you the stat. I just want to read you. Oh, here are the stats I was talking about. In game 5, I just want to read you the 3 superstars because Middleton and Holiday, who had not played well on the road, had to play. The Greek had 32, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Middleton had 29, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Holiday had 27, 4 rebounds, 13 assists. That adds up to 88 points, 20 rebounds, and 24 assists. The big 3, Booker had 40, but the big 3, Booker, Ayton, and Paul, in game 5, had 81 points, 16 rebounds, and 15 assists. Not close to what the big 3 on Milwaukee did on the road. That's the difference. That's why they won the series. And while in game 6, Milwaukee was down 16 in the first quarter in game 5. And I think Phoenix was down 13 in the first quarter of game 6, but it's the NBA now with the 3-point shot. They both came back. But Milwaukee was able to hold them off. The final thing I'll say, and turn it over to you, is I think they won game 6. And you know me, I don't usually go on Facebook during the games. You and I will text.
Right.
I went on Facebook before the end of the third quarter and wrote, the reason Milwaukee is winning this game is because of Antetokounmpo's foul shooting. After being virtually horrific the whole playoffs, he's not a good foul shooter. Before the end of the third quarter, he was 10 for 11 in free throws. And he wound up going 15 for 17, and they won by 7 points. And he was shooting more like in the 50s percentage-wise before. And so I totally think that's why they won the game. You can tell me 50 points and all of that, and it's all true. But I think they won the game because this guy somehow I even put an analogy in the Facebook post to Wilt. When Wilt scored 100, terrible foul shooter, Wilt. When Wilt scored 100, obviously regular season, not in the playoffs, he was 28 for 32 from the free throw line.
Wow.
He never did that. So Antetokounmpo to go 15 for 17 in a game 6, in a game that was close and that they won by 7, I thought his foul shooting was the key to the game. Now you can tell me he was at home. Nobody was counting. And the final thing I'd say, as great as Antetokounmpo is, and he's great, I think he can get better. He doesn't have a very good left. He just doesn't. He's not a good free throw shooter. He should not, I don't want to make him Ben Simmons and say never take a 3, but he should rarely take 3s. And he should work on that 12-foot game, which he kind of has a little bit. He still's not a good shooter from there. But as great as he is, I think he can get better. So we'll see what happens. I talked for a long time. Give me your thoughts.
No, I'm with you. I just think that there's such a dichotomy between what I saw with the Milwaukee. I was talking to my dad about this the other day. This is the kind of star you need. You don't necessarily need a big 3 or even necessarily a big 2, but you watch Milwaukee and what they did with this one mega star, 50 points in a closeout game. And then, because I'm comparing them to my squad, who, hey, listen, I like Embiid, but he's got some flaws in his game when he shows up. And then you got Ben Simmons, who shot 34% from the line, versus what you're saying, 15 of 17. And I'm just so amazed that there are guys like that out there. They don't exist on this team, and I guess that was my point. But forget about the 76ers. I thought 2 years ago they were the best team, Milwaukee, and I think it was Kawhi's time coming back from 2 down. Milwaukee was up 2-0 in that series after the Kawhi 4 bouncer against the Sixers. Kawhi takes the Raptors to a title, and then Milwaukee has an off year last year, and then they. You mentioned it earlier, and again, it's a game of inches, and we can be cliche, but if Kevin Durant's shoe is this much shorter, there's a totally different narrative. But hey, give them credit. They won Game 7 in Brooklyn, so I don't care what happened. It was on the road. They won that game. They almost blew it down the stretch. They came back from 2-0 down, which is hard to do. Did it again in the finals. I know you can only play with the teams that, trot out their roster, because you mentioned it's an injury-plagued season. But I just think what he did, and watching him and just in the 4 games that they turned it around after being down 2-0, especially you talk about Game 5. I like to talk about Game 4 because Phoenix controlled the game, the entirety of the game, till about 4 minutes left. And then Milwaukee turned it on, and you sent me a text. Remember, I was doing something with my kids, and you're like, wow. Like, what do you mean, wow? They were down 5 points a few minutes ago. They won by 9 or something like that. And I taped it. I watched the end. I was like, wow, I was right. But that was to me, that was the key that tied the series and made it a brand new series. They go down 3-1. I'm not sure they come back from the Suns. Remember, the Suns were 14-4 after they had a 2-0 lead. They were a juggernaut. And to then go 0-4, that to me, that's impressive. And I thought the Greek Freak, and I'm a big fan. I like what he says. I like his demeanor. I like he's a little self-deprecating. And I think you're right. I think he can get better, which is amazing, which is just amazing. So congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll keep it in that area as we turn to football a little bit, because another superstar from kind of that region, Aaron Rodgers, training camp, by the way, yay, starts next week. There's now reports that he may retire the night before training camp. Why is there so much discord? I mean, it seems like it's really deep for Aaron Rodgers, the discord between him and the Green Bay Packers. I can see where you're not that happy, and they changed coaches, and I thought he got along a lot better with the current coach than he did with the guy who's in Dallas. But where does this stem from? Where is this anger? Where is this? Or is it management, drafting the quarterback 2 years ago, and then Rodgers has an MVP year? And what's really behind all this?
I think a lot of it has to do with that 4th down play when they decided to kick the field goal and didn't give him a chance. He's Aaron Rodgers. And the notion that you were somehow going to get the ball back and be able to drive down the field again. I think it cut it to 5, right? So you would have needed a touchdown anyway.
Yeah. Mhm.
It made no sense. And he
Stupid.
might have said, my window's closing, or maybe he thinks his team isn't quite good enough. And I don't think they are quite good enough to beat Tampa. I just frankly don't know where he goes, where he can step in like Brady did with the Bucs. The Bucs had a very good defense. They had a ton of weapons. They had a quarterback who threw 30 interceptions the year before. I know he was a 30-30 guy, but that's not a compliment like in baseball.
Right.
And so I think Brady had a chance to go right there and win. Other people talked about him going to the Saints if Breeze had retired, which Breeze didn't. So Brady had the perfect team. As you're looking at Aaron Rodgers right now, where would you send him where you go, man, these guys are really good and Brady can put them over the top? Is it, man, Aaron Rodgers can go where? To the Bears? I don't know. The Rams, I guess, are out because they got Matthew Stafford, who's a question mark because he's never won a playoff game. So I think Rodgers is seeing, I'm not Tom Brady. I'm not playing till 43, 44, but I got, 2, 3, 4 good years, whatever Rodgers thinks. And I need to find a place where I have a chance to win next year. If you go to the AFC, you got to deal with Mahomes. If you go to the NFC, you got to deal with Brady. Don't forget, they're like the first or second team in 50 years to have all 22 of their starters back. That just doesn't happen in the modern era. And this is, to me, a credit to Brady. You're sticking around to play with Brady. You stuck around last year, or you signed last year, Gronk, Fournette, because of Brady. And now, if you love Brady, if you're a wide receiver now, if you're Godwin, who could have got a lot of money, I think. If you're Evans, you love this guy. And don't forget, who is it, O.J. Howard, who didn't even play? So they got Gronk, and they're overloaded, and they had no training camp last year. So Brady found the perfect situation. People will say, yeah, it was a little surprising that they won last year. I don't think so, because they used their first 6, 8 games as that was their exhibition season. That was get to know each other season. And then once they started clicking, it was unbelievable. Now people will say Kansas City's line is much better this year. You could pick a Tampa Bay Chiefs final Super Bowl right now. I want to pick a Nets Clippers final for next year right now. I'll have to put this in escrow somewhere just in case it happens. But I think Rodgers just wants out because he saw he's not beating the Bucs next year, even if he gets home field advantage, which he had last year.
Yeah.
And Brady's Brady, and he has shown no signs. I saw some stats on Brady after 40 that was scary. He's got the second most TD passes since he's been 40, only to Russell Wilson.
Scary.
He's been in 3 Super Bowls, right? He won 2. And the other one was the Eagles with the Clement questionable touchdown, I'll say.
He threw for 505 yards in that game.
Exactly. Right. So Brady's a freak. He's got that TB12 thing, but he's a freak. I saw the other day he kind of changed things when he was like joking with Joe Biden. There was, Brady, I think, was like a Trumper guy, and now he's tried to change, and he's getting grief now from the Republicans, and it's just kind of funny. If I were him, I'd just shut up. But he's Tom Brady; he can say what he wants.
Pretty much.
I think really that one play was like the final straw. He had problems with McCarthy. He had some problems with LaFleur. But I think if you can't trust me, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm the damn MVP. I'm a Hall of Famer. You can't trust me. We're down 8. We're not down 1-2 or 0-1 or 2 or 3 to tie. Maybe if it was to tie the game, he would have been all right with it. But it was such a stupid decision at the time. Nobody second guessed. Everybody said at the time, you're like, what are you, nuts? It's Aaron Rodgers. I think that had to hurt him so badly. But I'll say it again, unless you can tell me a team, and maybe it is the Bears, but unless you can tell me a team that's kind of similar to the Bucs of a year ago, before Brady signed with them, I don't know where he's going. Where is he going? He's not going to a bad team because that would be stupid. And even Devontae Adams now, he's not signing any long-term deal with the Packers. And if he goes, Rodgers goes and he goes, the Packers are a rebuild for, 2, 3, 5 years.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens. But that's all I could come up with.
No, I hear you. It's going to be interesting. He can unretire if he does retire next year, and I think then latch on with the team. He's going to lose a lot of money, and he's got plenty of money. I'm sure that's not the thing, but yeah, it's really a weird situation there in Green Bay. All right, let's go across the other side of the globe to Tokyo. The Olympics have started. I got to be honest. Unless you say someone else other than Alicia Schmidt, the runner from Germany, I got nothing on the Olympics. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I know the women's soccer team, they came back and beat New Zealand this morning, 6-1 after an opening loss. But what do you got? Where's the interest in these Olympics?
The women's soccer team, they lost to Sweden. Sweden's very good. They had won the women's soccer team had won the U.S. women's soccer team had won 44 in a row. The last team to beat them was Sweden.
Wow.
But Sweden dominated them 3-0. Maybe you tell me it's a wake-up call. Like you see the men's and women's Olympic basketball teams lose in these kind of exhibition games, even though it's shocking that they lost, but they have time to get it together. Seems to me now I know they crushed New Zealand 6-1 today. And we're taping this on Saturday, of course.
Right.
But to lose to Sweden 3-0, that's like a sign. But will that wake them up? Because they're still in. It's not like elimination game.
Right.
So can they come back? Yeah, they can come back. But, I think the bigger question is, as we talked about during the pandemic, should they even have the Olympics? Now, the Olympics is once every 4 years. In this case, as you know, they put it off to a 5th year. But there's over 2,000 new cases of COVID a day in Tokyo. A lot of people in Tokyo, to think of it, if it was in New York or Philly or LA, I don't think you'd want the Olympics.
Right.
Especially with this new variant. So I saw yesterday there were 91 athletes who had COVID. Bradley Beal's not going. He's got COVID for the basketball team.
Right.
But if there's 91 about, that means there's another 91 or more that you don't know about. And I guess you maybe have to balance that with the 5 years these people have tried. If I was good enough to be an Olympian and I worked for 5 years and you said to me, should we have it? I'd say, yeah, I'll take my chances.
Absolutely.
But, I don't know where the government is. They got a massive stadium there and there's 500 people in it every day. They have at least said if there really became an outbreak, they think about canceling it. But don't forget the TV money, Joe, because what do we always say? It's all about the money. This is a made-for-TV event as great as the Olympics are. But it's kind of hard to follow it. You're always thinking about other things. As we talked about when, the NFL just came up with that. We're going to forfeit games if we find out you were unvaccinated and you caused a COVID outbreak, and both teams will not get paid. So that's going to make players pressure each other.
Mm-hmm.
You better get the vaccine. Now, me personally, I think everyone should get the vaccine. That's just my personal opinion. Everyone has their own opinion. But if you haven't gotten the vaccine and you now see that 99% of the people who die are unvaccinated, if I didn't have the vaccine, that would make me run to get a vaccine.
Absolutely.
But I have a different mindset. I'm not I know your freedom and you don't know what you're putting in your body. But when your kid goes to school, and you know this, when your kid goes to school, you need those inoculations. You need those vaccines. They're this long on a piece of paper. And you got to present them to the school before you can go to school. That's mumps, measles, things we don't even think about anymore. Why? Because there's a vaccine. So I wouldn't be surprised if someday, not in the not too distant future, this year or next year, you're going to need to be vaccinated to go to school, just like you need the measles vaccine or the mumps vaccine. What's the other one? Rubella, I think. Yeah. I know when my kids were in, there was a full page.
Sure.
And you had to keep it current, and you had to keep it in every year.
So
I'll say it again. If 99% of the people who die now are unvaccinated and you're unvaccinated, you kind of need to make a smart decision, I think. Although there are still people who won't get it. And frankly, you just hope they don't die, or you hope they don't kill somebody. Because we're back to that. Who can you infect?
Like half the Phillies roster, Marcus Hayes just uncovered that half of them are unvaccinated, and because they feel that the vaccine might cause some fatigue for a few days. It's not really thinking big picture, guys. If you actually get get it, like the real thing. You could be out for a while. It's deadly. You're costing your team. You're costing your team starts. If you're Aaron Nola, who didn't have it, and he had to because he was hanging out with Alec Boehm, and that's a long story. But anyway, last thing, it's baseball related, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. But the Cleveland Guardians, how does that sound to you?
Well, it sounds better than the Cleveland Indians. I didn't know that Indians in and of itself was a slur. I know Redskins.
It was.
I know Redskins was a slur.
Right.
And the thing I thought that was offensive about the Cleveland Indians was Chief Wahoo. It was kind of the caricature.
Right.
But if it's a slur to Indians, then the Chiefs should change their names as well, by the way. If that's a slur, clearly.
What about the Braves?
Well, again, we know for a fact that Redskins was a slur and is a slur. If you tell me that Indians is, and by that, not you, I mean the Indian community, then get rid of all of them. There's lots of nicknames. As for the Cleveland Guardians, I got a friend in Cleveland, not Rick Morris. I got another diehard Cleveland fan, and I sent them a thing. Well, if they're the Cleveland Guardians, I hope they can play good defense. And he wrote back to me and said, actually, I hope they're the Guardians of 4-run leads because they've blown a bunch of them lately. But I think anything in today's world, I think anything is better than the Indians. It's been 106 years.
Yeah.
But you can't be like Snyder, who was, he trotted out like a bunch of Indians who said, yeah, we're okay with the Redskins. Of course, they had all been given money or something for some projects. So we still have the Washington football team. I just said jokingly, maybe it should be the Washington Angels. So it'll be Guardians and Angels.
Angels.
but I don't think that's going to catch fire or anything. But look, I think generally speaking, it's a good idea. You can have 1,000 nicknames, 10,000 nicknames. I'm not sure where the Guardians comes from, but whatever. And I guess Washington's going to wait till, I think, the following year, right? 2022, before they come up with a name. I don't think it really matters. But if these are slurs, absolutely, they should all be gone. Braves, that tomahawk chop should be gone. I don't know if they do it anymore in Atlanta.
I love the chop, too. To me, that's college football. You go to Doak Campbell Stadium.
Right. But again, if these things are slurs to the people who they slur, I think you got to go along with what they think, because you and I can't really make that judgment.
I agree with you. I can't tell someone else how they should or shouldn't feel. The Guardian stems from, there's these Art Deco buildings along the side of this bridge in Cleveland since 1932 that they're called the Guardians of Transportation. Thought that was a little bit of a corny origin, but hey, it's very,
okay.
It's germane to Cleveland. Hey, knock yourself out. Whatever does it for you. Just go win a championship. But good stuff, brother, as usual. And you can also check out Steve's other thoughts on sports and the current events going on every day on his Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas, you can also check out his videos, WestchesterCountyPost.com on YouTube. This podcast is on YouTube every week, along with Steve's Facebook page, which I mentioned in mine as well. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975. Steven, great job. We'll be back next week, possibly back to a normal Friday taping. And there's reasons behind that, but either Friday or Saturday, we'll be taping this every week. And Steve, great job as usual. We'll catch you next week.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too. All right. Thanks, folks. Enjoy your week. Be safe. God bless. And we'll see you next time.